Have you ever had to pretend you were asleep while the person you loved did something that would change your life forever? That is my story. And before I start, I need you to understand one thing. I wasn't prepared for what happened that Friday night. No one is ever prepared for the moment when everything you've hidden for years comes to light in a way you never imagined. My name is Lucas. I'm 24 years old. I work as a freelance graphic designer, and until a few months ago, I thought I had my life under control. I lived with my best friend, Raphael, in a downtown apartment that we shared to split rent. He's a civil engineer, 24 years old, and before all this happened, I was sure that our friendship was the one thing in my life that would never change, the only solid thing, the only safe thing. But I was wrong. Raphael and I met 7 years ago. 7 years. I was 17, so was he. We were in our senior year of high school, in that kind of public school where everyone knows everyone, and where being different is synonymous with being a target. I was the skinny kid with glasses who didn't play soccer, didn't talk about women, and spent recess drawing in a notebook instead of being on the court with the others. You know what it's like. Or maybe you know too well. It was on a rainy Tuesday that it all began. I was leaning against the hallway wall, trying to make myself invisible while 3 guys from my class did what they always did. Surrounded me, laughed, shoved my backpack, called me names, the usual bullying. I had already learned not to react, keep my head down, wait for it to pass, go to the bathroom to cry afterwards. It was my survival routine, until he showed up. Raphael wasn't in my friend group. He was one of those guys everyone automatically respected. Tall, broad shoulders even at 17, stubble starting to show, hands already rough from construction work on weekends. He had that easy smile that disarmed any tension, that deep voice that made people listen when he spoke. He was everything I wasn't. And me? I just wanted to be invisible. But that day, Raphael didn't walk past. He stopped, looked at me, looked at the 3 guys, and said just this: "Leave him alone." Just that. 3 words. But the way he said it, with that serious look I'd never seen before, it was like he said so much more. The guys laughed nervously, tried to make a joke, but Raphael crossed his arms and repeated, "Leave him alone," and they left, just like that. As if I had just gained an invisible shield, Raphael reached out his hand to me and asked my name. I could barely speak. I was shaking with anger, with shame, with a gratitude so big it hurt my chest. He smiled that smile of his and said, "Relax, man. No one deserves to go through that. If anyone bothers you again, call me." And that's how it started. A friendship born from an act of courage I never would have had. He started sitting with me at recess. He'd call me to play video games at his house, defended me whenever someone cracked a joke. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had someone on my side. Someone who saw me. Someone who cared. Raphael became my best friend. My only friend, to be honest. And as the years passed, that friendship only got stronger. We graduated. He started engineering school. I started freelancing in design. We went out together, drank together, laughed at stupid things together. He had girlfriends now and then, casual things that lasted a few months, but nothing serious. Me? I pretended I wasn't interested in anyone. It was easier that way. When we decided to move in together 2 years ago, it made perfect sense. Split the rent, have company, avoid random roommates. But for me, it meant more than that. It meant waking up and seeing his smile over coffee. It meant walking through the living room and hearing him complain about construction work while watching a series on the couch. It meant having him close all the time. And that closeness, which should have made everything easier, only made everything harder. Because it was around that time, 2 years ago, that I finally admitted to myself what I had spent years denying. I didn't love Raphael as a friend. I was in love with him. Completely, hopelessly in love. And that truth was a prison sentence. Because Raphael was straight, always had been, always talked about women, always identified as straight, always acted straight. And me, I was the gay friend he had defended in high school. The friend he protected. the friend he respected, but would never ever see as anything more than that. So I hid it. I hid it so well that sometimes I even forgot myself. When he brought a girl home and I heard them talking in his room, I pretended it didn't hurt. When he asked me for dating advice, I gave it, with the most convincing smile I could manage. When he walked around the apartment shirtless after a shower, with that body defined by hours on the construction site, I looked away and pretended to be focused on my laptop. I became an expert at pretending. Pretending I didn't care. Pretending I didn't feel anything. Pretending it was just friendship. Pretending I didn't spend entire nights awake thinking about him sleeping in the room next door. Pretending I didn't know exactly how messy his hair got in the morning. Pretending I didn't memorize every detail. The way he scratched his beard when he was thinking. The way he laughed when he found something truly funny. That serious look he gave when he was worried about me. I became an actor in my own life, and believe me, I was good at it. So good that sometimes even I believed the lie. But there's one thing about lies. They have an expiration date, and mine was about to expire in a way I never expected. Because 2 years pretending, 2 years hiding every glance, every thought, every desire, that changes you. You start to believe it's possible to live like that forever. That you can just keep everything locked inside you. That it's possible to love someone in silence for the rest of your life. That your desire to be near him is enough. That having crumbs of his attention is better than having nothing. I convinced myself I could control this. That I was strong enough to carry this secret alone. That our friendship was more important than any feeling I had. And maybe it was. But the problem with carrying secrets that are too heavy is that eventually, you get tired. Eventually you stumble. Eventually you let it slip. Or worse. Eventually someone notices. Raphael started going out more often. Friday nights became drinks with the construction crew. He always invited me, but I usually made up an excuse. It was torture watching him flirt with waitresses, laugh at those crude jokes, be so naturally himself while I stood frozen, terrified someone would catch me staring at him. So I stayed home, worked late, pretended everything was fine. But there was one specific Friday a few weeks ago that I decided to go. I don't know why. Maybe I was tired of running. Maybe I wanted to prove to myself that I could be normal. Maybe I just needed to be near him, even in that context. So I went. And that night changed absolutely everything. We drank. We talked. We laughed. Raphael was closer than usual, touching my shoulder when telling a joke, looking at me in that way of his, half serious, half playful. I tried not to think too much about it, tried to just enjoy the moment, but my heart was racing the whole time. Every touch of his was like an electric shock. Every time our eyes met, I had to take a deep breath not to give it away. When we got back to the apartment, it was almost 2 in the morning. Both buzzed, practically stumbling down the hallway, laughing at something neither of us would remember the next day. Raphael went straight to the bathroom. I went to the living room. I looked at the sofa bed. I looked at the hallway leading to the bedrooms. And in that moment, dizzy from the drink and the closeness we'd shared all night, I made a decision. I was going to crash on the living room sofa, away from him. Because if I went to my room right next to his with just a wall between us, I didn't trust myself. I was afraid of what I might do, what I might say, what I might let slip. So I pulled out the sofa bed, grabbed a blanket, took off my glasses, and lay down. I closed my eyes, tried to sleep, tried to shut off my brain that wouldn't stop replaying every moment of that night, every touch, every look. And that's when I heard his footsteps coming through the living room. I kept my eyes closed, pretended I was already asleep. I thought he would just walk straight to his room. Thought he wouldn't even notice me there. But the footsteps stopped, by my side, too close. And then it happened. Raphael sat on the edge of the sofa. I felt his weight sink into the mattress. I felt the heat of his body next to mine. And for an interminable second, he just stayed there, breathing. I kept my eyes closed, heart exploding in my chest, not understanding what was happening, until I felt his hand in my hair. He started stroking my hair, slowly, softly, with a gentleness I had never felt from him, his fingers gliding through the strands as if he were memorizing every inch. And me? I froze, completely paralyzed. I couldn't move, couldn't open my eyes, couldn't breathe right. All I could do was feel every touch, every movement, every second that seemed to last an eternity. My mind was screaming, my body was trembling on the inside. But I didn't react. I kept pretending to be asleep, as if it wasn't happening, as if my whole world wasn't collapsing and rebuilding itself at the same time. How long did he stay there? A minute? 5? 10? I don't know. Time ceased to exist. There was only his hand in my hair, his weight on the edge of the sofa, his breath so close I could feel it on my face. And then, he stopped. I heard him get up, heard his footsteps walking away, heard his bedroom door opening, closing. And then, finally, I opened my eyes, and my life was never the same again. I lay still, motionless, eyes fixed on the ceiling, but seeing nothing. My heart was beating so hard I thought he could hear it from his room. Did he hear it? Did he know I was faking it the whole time? My breathing was completely ragged, too fast. I tried to control it, but I couldn't. It was like my body was in panic mode, but my mind was trying to process everything at once. That touch, almost affectionate, as if that moment meant something. But did it mean something? Or was I creating a fantasy in my head because that's what I do? Because that's what I've always done with him? I forced myself to take a deep breath. Once, twice, 3 times. But it was no use. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it again. The pressure of his hand, the heat, the closeness, and that heavy silence that existed between us in that moment. A silence that said everything and nothing at the same time. How much time had passed since he went into his room? 5 minutes? 10? 20? I had no idea. Time had completely lost its meaning. I kept lying on the couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand what the hell had just happened. Raphael touched me. My best friend of 7 years. The guy who always identified as straight, and yet he stayed there. For minutes. Just touching. As if it were natural. As if he had every right to do that. But I'm not. And he isn't mine. And this shouldn't have happened. Right? I sat up on the couch. Slowly. My muscles were tense, rigid from pretending to be relaxed for so long. The back of my neck ached. My shoulders were locked up, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the chaos inside my head. I looked at his bedroom door. Closed. No light underneath. Was he already asleep? Or was he awake, staring at his ceiling, thinking? Thinking about what? About what he had just done? Why did he do that? The questions wouldn't stop coming. They piled up in my mind, one on top of the other. Answerless, illogical, disordered. It was like my brain was trying to put together a puzzle, but all the pieces were the same color. Impossible to solve. He was drunk. Yes, he was. We both were. We drank at the bar with his work friends. Beer. Lots of beer. Maybe he confused me with someone else. With some ex-girlfriend. Maybe he was so drunk he didn't know what he was doing. But then, why did he stop? Why did he get up and leave? And why, before getting up, did I hear a sigh? A sigh that wasn't from sleep. It was of resignation. As if he were holding something back. As if he wanted to do more, but forced himself to stop. Or am I making all this up? I ran my hands over my face. My glasses were on the coffee table. I picked them up, put them on. But visual clarity didn't bring mental clarity. Nothing made sense. I've known Raphael for 7 years. I know when he's happy. I know when he's stressed. I know when he's lying. I know when he's afraid. I know his every expression, every tone of voice, every gesture. And yet, I never ever expected this. I got up from the couch. My bare feet touched the cold apartment floor. I walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water. I drank half of it in one go, without stopping. The ice-cold water burned down my throat, but it didn't put out the fire inside me, because it wasn't just confusion. It wasn't just shock. It was desire. A desire I'd been repressing for 2 years. 2 years hiding every lingering look. Every time he laughed and my heart raced. Every damn time I had to remind myself he was straight. And now? Now he went and did that. That touch. That moment. And I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to go back. How to pretend it didn't happen. How to look at him tomorrow morning and act normal. Because nothing is normal. Nothing will ever be normal again. I went back to the living room. Looked at the couch. You could still see the imprint of his body where he sat. The cushion was sunken. And I, like an idiot, went over there. I sat exactly where he had sat. As if sitting there could give me some answer. As if it could connect me to what he was feeling in that moment. But I only felt more confusion, more pain, more fear. Because what if he doesn't remember tomorrow? What if he wakes up and pretends nothing happened? What if I mention it and he laughs and says he was too drunk to know what he was doing? But what if he does remember? What if he knows exactly what he did? What if? What if that means something? I couldn't decide which scenario terrified me more. I lay back down on the couch, pulled the blanket up to my chin. But sleep didn't come. How could it? How can anyone sleep after something like this? I stayed there staring at the ceiling, reliving every second. The way he breathed. The way he hesitated before touching. As if he were gathering the courage. As if he knew he was crossing a line. And he did. He crossed the line. And now I was alone, on the other side, not knowing how to go back. Or if I wanted to go back. Because deep down, really deep down, I wanted him to do this for so long. I dreamed about this, literally. Woke up in the middle of the night with my heart racing after dreams where he touched me like that. Where he looked at me differently. Where he said my name in a way that wasn't just friendship. And now it happened. Not the way I imagined. Not with him asking me. Not with us talking beforehand. But it happened. And I don't know if this is a beginning or an end. I heard a noise. Coming from his room. A creak. The bed. He was tossing. Was he awake? Or did he just shift position? I held my breath. Waiting. Waiting for... what? For him to open the door? For him to come back? For him to sit next to me again and explain everything? But the door stayed closed, and the silence returned. A silence that weighed tons. A silence that screamed everything that wasn't said. I turned on my side, stared at the back of the sofa, squeezed my eyes shut tight, tried to force myself to sleep. But his touch was still there, imprinted on my skin, etched in my memory, impossible to ignore. The hours passed. Slowly, painfully slowly, I watched the light of dawn start creeping in through the window. The apartment grew less dark, but my confusion didn't clear up one bit. I heard his alarm go off. 6:30 in the morning. Raphael had a job site to visit today. Saturday morning, but he had a client meeting. He was going to wake up, walk out of his room, and I was going to have to face him. My stomach churned. I considered pretending to still be asleep, again, just so I wouldn't have to deal with it right now. But I was tired of pretending. I'd pretended all night, pretended for 2 years. I didn't have the energy to keep pretending anymore. But I didn't have the courage to face it either. I heard the bedroom door open. Footsteps. He was heading to the bathroom. The bathroom door closed. The shower turned on. And I, like a coward, jumped off the sofa, grabbed my phone, my keys, and bolted out of the apartment. I went down the stairs, practically running. My heart was beating out of rhythm. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't be there when he got out of the shower. I couldn't look at him. Not yet. Not without knowing what to say, what to feel, what to do. I hit the street as the sun was coming up. The city was just waking up. A few cars passed, people headed to work. And there I was, standing on the sidewalk, completely lost, with a shattered heart and my mind scattered. I started walking, without thinking, just walking. One street, another, one more. I needed to put distance between me and that apartment, between me and him, between me and that touch that changed absolutely everything. But no matter how much I walked, no matter how hard I tried to escape, I knew there was no running away. Because the problem wasn't in the apartment. It was inside me. It was in my feelings. It was in that touch I felt and now couldn't forget. Raphael touched me, and I let him. And now I need to decide what to do with that. If I confront him, if I pretend it didn't happen, if I move out, if I give up on our friendship, if I take a risk, if I tell the truth. But which truth? The truth that I've been in love with him for 2 years? The truth that that touch destroyed me and gave me hope at the same time? The truth that I don't know if I can keep living with him without him knowing? I stopped walking. I was in a square, empty. Just me and a few pigeons. I collapsed onto a bench, buried my face in my hands, and for the first time since that night, I broke down completely. Because I was tired. Tired of hiding. Tired of pretending. Tired of loving someone I wasn't allowed to love. Tired of living this lie. But I was also scared. Scared of losing him. Scared of destroying the most important friendship of my life. Scared of taking the risk and finding out it meant nothing. That it was just a moment of weakness. That he was drunk and confused and it will never happen again. And then, while I was there, sitting in that square, with the sun rising and the tears drying on my face, I realized something. I realized that it didn't matter how far I ran. It didn't matter how hard I tried to forget. That moment happened. And it changed everything. There's no going back. There's no pretending life goes on the same. Because it doesn't. Because now I know. I know what it feels like to have his hand in my hair. I know what it's like to have him so close. I know that tension, that silence, that possibility. And I'm going to have to decide. Sooner or later. I'm going to have to choose between the safety of the lie and the risk of the truth. But for now, as the sun climbed higher and the city woke up, I stayed there. Sitting. Alone. Trying to gather the pieces of my heart. Trying to find the courage to go back. To face him. To find out what that meant. Because one thing I know. One thing is absolutely certain. After that night, after that touch, nothing, absolutely nothing will be the same as before. I don't know how long I stayed on that bench. The sun was already high when I realized my phone had vibrated about 5 times. Messages from Raphael. Of course. He woke up, realized I wasn't in the apartment, and was probably worried. Because that's what Raphael does. He worries. He cares. He's the kind of person who always asks if you've eaten, if you slept well, if you need anything. And now, after what happened, every gesture of his was going to mean something different in my head. Every word, every look, or every lack of a look. I turned off my phone, put it in my pocket, stood up, and started walking back. Not because I was ready, but because I had no choice. We've shared the apartment for 2 years. We've shared a life for 7. You can't just disappear. You can't pretend that night didn't happen. You can't pretend I didn't feel every second of his hand in my hair, as if someone had finally found a hidden switch inside me and turned on a light I didn't even know existed. But I can't confront him either, because what am I going to say? Hey, Rafa, about that night you stroked my hair thinking I was asleep, but I was awake feeling every touch and almost stopping breathing for fear of ruining the moment. Can we talk about that? It's ridiculous. It's pathetic. And deep down, a part of me prefers the doubt. Because doubt still has hope built into it. Doubt allows me to keep imagining that maybe, just maybe, it meant what I want it to mean. When I got to the apartment, he was in the living room, sitting on the couch. The same couch where everything happened. And for the first time in our entire friendship, I hesitated at the door. He looked at me and smiled. That easy, crooked smile of his that always made everything feel okay. Hey man, up early, huh? I went to get some water and saw you were already gone. Went for a run? A run, of course. Perfect excuse. I could have gone with it, just nodded and moved on. But my voice came out rough, strained. Yeah, just needed to. Clear my head. He nodded, took a sip of coffee, went back to watching TV, which was showing some sports thing, as if nothing had changed, as if the night before hadn't happened. And that's when it started. The torture. Because over the next few days, Raphael acted completely normal. Too normal. Like he was following a script he'd memorized. Good morning? Want coffee? Heading to the site, back tonight. So how was work? Ordering in or are we cooking? Everything the same. Everything as it always was. And it drove me crazy. Because there were two possibilities. Either he really didn't remember anything, because he was too drunk. Or he remembered, and was doing everything to pretend he didn't. And I didn't know which of the two was worse. If he didn't remember, then it meant nothing. It was just a random, meaningless gesture from someone who was a bit dizzy and confused. And here I was, deconstructing my entire life over an accident. But if he remembered and was pretending he didn't, then that meant he was ashamed, or regretted it, or was afraid. And that meant that the moment that was so huge for me was so terrifying for him that he preferred to bury it. I started watching everything, every detail, every micro-expression. On Monday morning, we almost bumped into each other in the kitchen. He was getting milk from the fridge and I was coming to get bread. Our arms touched. For half a second, and he pulled away fast. Too fast, like on purpose fast. Or was I losing it? On Tuesday night, we were watching a movie. He sat on the couch but left a space between us. It wasn't a normal personal space gap. It was a calculated space. I felt it. I know I felt it. Or was I just projecting? On Wednesday, he went out with co-workers from the site and came home really late. Didn't even text. He always does, something like, "Running late, don't hold dinner." But that day, nothing. Total silence. And when he arrived and I was still awake in the living room, he seemed surprised, bothered. Or was I reading things that didn't exist? I kept replaying that night obsessively, frame by frame, like watching it in slow motion inside my head. His breathing changing, getting heavier, slower, as if he was trying to control something. Those minutes he stayed there, just touching, just existing in that moment with me. Did he feel what I felt? Was his heart racing like mine? Did he want more? Or had I built some giant fantasy on something that meant absolutely nothing to him? Thursday morning, I decided I was going to talk. I couldn't take it anymore. The tension was killing me inside. I was sleeping poorly, working poorly, living poorly. Every time I looked at him, it was like there was a scream stuck in my throat wanting to get out. He was making coffee. I walked in. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he could hear it. "Rafa!" My voice came out low, but he heard it, turned around. For the first time in days, he actually looked at me, really looked. It wasn't that quick good morning glance and look away. It was a real look. He waited. We need to... I stopped. Tried to find the words. But nothing came. Because looking into his eyes, I was suddenly terrified. Real fear. If I said anything, everything would fall apart. The friendship, living together, 7 years of trust, everything. "Need to what?" he asked, his voice calm, neutral, as always. I swallowed hard, looked away. "Need you to grab more coffee. We're running low." He looked at the jar, which was almost full, then back at me, and I caught it. For just a second, something flashed across his face. Disappointment? Relief? I couldn't tell. Before I could try to understand, he nodded. "Okay, I'll buy some later." And left the kitchen. I grabbed the sink edge and just stood there, trembling. Because I had backed down. I had the chance, and I backed down. And the worst part? A part of me felt relieved too. Because as long as we didn't talk about it, we could still pretend. I could still live in uncertainty. I could still imagine different endings. But if I confronted him and he said, "Man, I was drunk. I don't even remember it right. It was just a random gesture. Relax." It would be over. The hope would be over. And I don't know if I was ready for that. Little did I know the choice wouldn't be mine. Friday night, 1 week since it happened, I was in my room, pretending to work, really just staring at my screen, watching time pass, wondering how I could possibly keep doing this, sharing space with someone I loved but couldn't touch, looking at someone who might have felt something for me for 5 minutes of a drunken night, but who was now locking everything away so deep it was as if nothing had ever existed. I started considering moving out. Seriously, I started looking at available apartments, figuring out how much it would cost to live alone, imagining what it would be like not seeing him every day. And just thinking about it made my chest ache. Because Raphael isn't just the person I love. He's my best friend. He's the person who knows me better than anyone else in the world. Losing him would be losing half of myself. But going on like this was destroying me too. So I stood there, stuck. Between the fear of losing him and the fear of continuing to lose myself slowly, every day, a little piece at a time. That's when he knocked on my door. 3 deliberate knocks, like he'd rehearsed it. "Can I come in?" My whole body froze. "Sure." He opened the door, walked in, and from the way he was standing, the way he closed it behind him, I could tell something was different. He didn't have that forced neutrality of the last few days. He was tense, nervous. His hands went to his pockets, came out, went back. He looked at me, looked at the floor, took a deep breath. "We need to talk." 4 words, but they hit like everything was about to change. My heart raced, my mouth went dry. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. I only managed to nod. Because finally, after a whole week of torture, of obsessive analysis, of near confrontations and retreats, of pretending everything was normal while everything was crumbling inside, it was finally going to happen. The talk, the truth, or the end of everything. And I had no idea which of the two I was more prepared to face. He stood there for a few seconds, just looking at me. His hands, which had gone into his pockets, came out again, moved through the air as if they had lost their purpose, and went back. He took a deep breath. I saw his chest rise and fall. I saw his jaw clench, and then he spoke again, quieter this time. "You've been acting weird for a week, and I can't pretend I don't notice anymore." My stomach turned. My mouth went dry. I tried to speak, but my voice didn't come out. I tried again. "I'm not acting weird." He gave a short smile, bitter, the kind of smile that hurts to see. "Yes, you are. You don't look at me anymore. You leave the room when I enter. You make up excuses to avoid having coffee together. You barely answer when I talk to you. And when you do, it's like I'm a stranger." He took a breath. "I just need to know why." I had no idea what to say, because he was right. Every word was true. I couldn't deny it without lying again. And I was exhausted from lying. But I also couldn't tell him the truth, because the truth would destroy everything. "I'm just tired. Work. Stuff like that." "Lucas." The way he said my name hit different, heavy, disappointed. "I've known you for 7 years. I know when you're tired, and I know when you're lying." Silence. Heavy. The kind that presses down and suffocates, that forces you to speak. I looked down, at the floor, my bare feet, anywhere but his eyes. "I don't know what you want me to say." "The truth." He stepped forward. Just 1 step, but the whole room felt smaller. "I just want the truth." And that was the moment something inside me broke, because I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take pretending everything was normal anymore. I couldn't take carrying that weight alone anymore. I couldn't take looking at him and feeling like I was betraying our friendship just by existing. "You want the truth?" My voice came out louder, stronger, desperate. "The truth is, I can't pretend that night never happened. The truth is, I can't act normal anymore because nothing is normal. The truth is..." I stopped. I was about to say everything about what he did, what I felt, 2 years of hidden feelings. But at the last second, something stopped me cold. Fear. Panic. absolute terror of what would happen if I spoke. So I stopped, and the silence returned. But this time it was different. It was worse, because now he knew I was hiding something, and I knew that he knew. Raphael didn't move, just stood there in the middle of my room staring at me. Not angry, not confused, something deeper. Pain. That night. He said it slowly, like he was figuring out what it meant. What night? My heart raced, because I had said too much. I had given him the information he needed, and now there was no turning back. Nothing. Forget it. What night, Lucas? I said forget it. No. He shook his head. No, you're not doing this. You're not going to start talking and then stop. Not with me. Not after 7 years. Raphael, please. What night? I closed my eyes. I couldn't look at him. I didn't want to see his face when he got it. But I also knew there was no way to run anymore. No way to hide anymore. So I said it quietly, almost a whisper. Friday night, a week ago, when you came home drunk. The silence that followed was different from all the others. This one wasn't heavy. It wasn't suffocating. This one was empty. As if all the air had been sucked out of the room. As if time had stopped. I opened my eyes. He was standing there with an expression I'd never seen before. Not surprise, not confusion, recognition, like he already knew. Like he was just waiting for me to say it. You were on the couch, he said quietly, his voice strange. Asleep. I know. I just... He stopped. Ran his hand over his face, through his hair, like he was trying to get it together. I was wasted. I don't even remember exactly what I did. That's when I knew. He was lying to himself. I saw it in his expression, the way he couldn't look at me, how his voice shook. He remembers everything. You remember, I said. Not as a question, as a statement. He didn't answer. He just stood there, looking anywhere but at me. Raphael, you remember. More silence. Then he looked up, and I saw it all the truth he was hiding. The fear, the shame, the confusion. I remember, he admitted, so quietly I barely heard it. My heart stopped. Completely stopped. I wasn't ready for him to admit it. Wasn't ready for confirmation that it was real. Not an accident. Not drunk confusion. So you... I couldn't finish the sentence, because I didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to react. He stepped closer. Then closer. Until I could see everything. The dark circles, the stubble. His shoulders tense like he was carrying the world. You were asleep, he said, his voice weaker now, broken. Or... I thought you were. My whole body froze. No. No, 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 no. What? He closed his eyes, took a breath. When he opened them, tears. Real tears. Raphael. The guy who never cries. The guy who was always strong. The guy who always protected me. And then he spoke. 4 words. Just 4. But they changed everything. I knew you were awake. The world stopped. Everything stopped. My brain, my heart, my breathing. Everything, because... What? He knew? He knew? How did you... I saw, he interrupted. Saw you squeeze your eyes shut when I sat. Saw your breathing change. Saw you swallow hard. And I... He stopped. Tears fell. I knew. I couldn't process it. Couldn't think. Because everything I thought was wrong. But you... You left. You just got up and left. I know. Then why? Why did you do that if you knew I was awake? And that was the question. The only question that mattered. The question I had asked myself 100 times. 1,000 times. The question that kept me awake every night for the last week. Raphael looked at me, straight in the eyes, and I saw everything there. All the truth, all the fear, all the vulnerability he never let anyone see. Because I wanted to, he said, barely a whisper. I've wanted to for a long time. That night, drunk, with courage. I never have sober. I thought if you were asleep, you wouldn't know, then maybe. He stopped, took a breath. Maybe I could do it without admitting it, without facing what it meant. My brain exploded, because what he was saying, you wanted to? He laughed, short, humorless, full of pain. I wanted to do it. I just didn't have the courage to do it while you were awake. And that was the moment everything crumbled. All the walls I had built, all the defenses, all the fears, everything fell, because it wasn't an accident. He wasn't drunk and confused. He did it because he wanted to. Because he wanted to. Raphael, I know what you're gonna say, he interrupted. I know it's wrong. I know you're my best friend. I know I shouldn't feel what I feel. I know this changes everything, and I probably disgust you now. But I couldn't fake it anymore. Can't live here, see you every day, and pretend I don't. He stopped, swallowed hard. Pretend I don't think about you in ways I shouldn't. Silence. Total. Absolute. I couldn't speak. Couldn't think. Just stood there frozen, staring at him, trying to process what he'd said. He thinks about me. In a way he shouldn't. Raphael, the guy I've been in love with for 2 years. The guy I thought would never look at me like that. The guy I was certain was completely, absolutely straight. He feels something for me. Suddenly, every time I caught him looking at me, every excuse to be close, every touch on my shoulder, arm, back a second longer than necessary, every time I brushed it off as friendship, convinced myself I was imagining it. All those times were real. Lucas. He said it like he was pleading, terrified. Please, say something. But I couldn't. Too much to say. 2 years of bottled up feelings ready to explode. Fear, relief, confusion, hope, terror, all at once. I didn't know where to even start. My voice was weak, broken. You really feel something? He looked straight at me, and I saw the truth. Raw, naked, defenseless. I don't know what I'm feeling, he admitted. I don't know what to call this, but when I look at you, I feel something I've never felt for anyone. And that night when I touched you, it was the first time I felt complete. Tears. I didn't even know I was crying until they hit my face, because this was everything I'd ever wanted to hear. Everything I'd dreamed of. Everything I thought would never happen. But now that it was happening, I didn't know what to do. I don't know what to do with this, I said. I don't know how. How we even deal with this. Neither do I, he replied. But I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't live a lie anymore. Not to you. Not to my best friend. He stepped closer. So close I felt his heat. Could see every detail, the fear, the hope, the vulnerability. I don't want to lose you, he whispered, but I can't keep lying about who I am around you. That's when I realized it wasn't just me. Raphael was suffering too. Maybe even more. He was dealing with the feelings and the confusion about what they meant, about who he was, about everything he thought he knew about himself changing. You won't lose me, I promised, even though I wasn't sure. No matter what. You're my best friend. That doesn't change. He laughed, that sad, painful laugh. But it does change, Lucas. Everything changed the moment I touched you that night. Silence again. But different. Not heavy or suffocating. Expectant. Like the world was holding its breath. So what do we do now? I asked. Because I had no idea. There's no handbook for this. No guide. No right answer. Raphael looked at me for a long moment. Then spoke with a voice so vulnerable, so exposed, it shattered and healed my heart at the same time. I don't know. But I can't fake it anymore. And if we don't talk about this, if we're not honest about what's happening, we're gonna lose each other anyway. He was right. Pretending didn't work. Avoidance didn't work. Lying didn't work. The only option left was truth. Even if the truth was terrifying. Even if the truth changed everything. Even if the truth didn't come with guarantees of a happy ending. Because in the end, the truth was all we had. And maybe, just maybe, it would be enough. So we sat on the same couch where it started. For a long minute, neither of us spoke. Just stared at the floor, our hands, anywhere but each other's faces. Because starting meant admitting we'd passed the point of no return. That pretending was done. That we'd have to look inside and say things we'd never said out loud. And that was terrifying. Raphael broke the silence. Barely a whisper. I don't even know where to start. I laughed. A nervous, broken laugh that wasn't funny at all. Because I didn't know either. How do you start a conversation about something you've spent years hiding? Something you swore to yourself you'd take to the grave? I don't know either, I said. And then, because someone had to take the first step, I took a deep breath and spoke. But maybe we start with the obvious. You said you knew I was awake, that you wanted to do that. Raphael closed his eyes like hearing it out loud physically hurt. Yes. Why? That was the question, the one I kept asking since he confessed. Why did you do it? Why me? Why now? Raphael opened his eyes. So much fear, so much vulnerability. My chest tightened. Because I've been confused for a long time, he said, his voice shaking. Because I feel things I shouldn't. Because when I look at you, something inside me, I can't control it. And it terrifies me. I couldn't breathe. Hearing him admit he felt something, it was more than I dared dream. But the pain in his voice was real. The confusion was real. This wasn't a romantic declaration. This was someone drowning. How long? I asked softly. Raphael ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I knew too well. When he was nervous, searching for the right words. I don't know. Years, maybe? I always justified it in other ways. I thought it was just deep friendship. That everyone feels this way about their best friend. That it was normal to want to be close to you all the time. Normal to feel jealous when you went out with other guys. My heart raced. I'd never realized. Never noticed Raphael felt jealous. I thought he was just being protective. Being the friend he always was. But that night, Raphael continued. We came back drunk. You were on the sofa. I went to my room, laid in bed, tried to sleep. But I couldn't stop thinking about you. Couldn't stop wanting to be close in a way that wasn't friendship. He stopped, took a deep breath. And then he said the hardest part. So I went back. Sat next to you. I just needed to touch you. Once. To see if it was real. If it was just confusion or something more. Tears burned my eyes. I remembered that touch. Every second. How soft. How long it lasted. How it changed everything. And was it? I asked, voice choked. Was it real? Raphael looked at me, tears in his eyes too. Yes, too real. That's what scared me most. Silence, heavy, charged, full of unsaid things finally rising to the surface. And then I spoke. Because if he had the courage to expose himself like that, I needed to have it too. 2 years, Raphael. He looked at me, confused. 2 years of feelings for you, I said, my voice cracking. 2 years pretending you're just my best friend. 2 years terrified you'd find out and I'd lose you. I wiped the tears falling uncontrollably. And that night, when you touched me, it was the worst and the best thing that ever happened to me. Because for a moment, just a moment, I stopped pretending. I let you touch me the way I always wanted you to touch me. But at the same time, I knew the next day we'd have to go back to pretending. And that destroyed me. Raphael cried too, silent tears streaming down his face. I didn't know, he said, voice broken. I didn't know. Lucas, I never wanted to hurt you. Never wanted you to suffer. I know, I said, because I never told you. Too afraid. Afraid of losing you. Afraid you'd look at me different. Afraid of being alone. Alone? Yes, alone, I spoke, and this time anger appeared alongside the pain. Because do you know how hard it is to be gay, Raphael? To hide who you are constantly? Measure every word, every gesture, every look? Because if you slip up, show too much, people judge you, reject you, hurt you. My voice rose. Years of bottled up things, years of pain, loneliness, and I thought that at least with you I had a safe place. A place where I could be myself, where I didn't need to be afraid. But then I fell in love with you, and suddenly even that place became dangerous. Because now I had to hide it from you too. Raphael looked at me with pain so deep it almost stopped me, but I couldn't stop. Not now. Do you know what it's like to wake up every day and have to pretend the person you love doesn't exist the way you want them to exist? Do you know what it's like to have to hear that person talk about other relationships and have to give advice and be supportive while your heart is breaking? Lucas. Raphael tried to speak, but I didn't let him. Let me finish. I need to say this. 2 years carrying this alone. Going to sleep, hugging the pillow, pretending it's you. My voice broke. I stopped hiding it. Just let it out. That night when you touched me was everything and nothing. For a few minutes I had you. Then you left, and the loneliness was unbearable. Because now I knew what it felt like. Knew you'd never touch me again. Silence. Raphael sobbed, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. Seeing him like that, crying because of me, because of us, something inside me shattered and healed at the same time. Because we were finally being honest, finally being vulnerable, finally taking off all the masks and showing who we really were. And it was terrifying, but it was also liberating. I'm so sorry, Raphael said, voice muffled. Sorry for making you feel that way. Sorry I didn't notice. Sorry I was such a coward. You weren't a coward, I said, calmer, exhausted. You were human, confused, like me. Raphael lowered his hands, looked at me with red, wet, vulnerable eyes. I don't know what I am, Lucas, he said, and the honesty cut through me. Always called myself straight, always dated girls. Thought that was it. Then there's you. And it's different. I don't know if I'm gay bi or just feel this for you, or if it's confusion. He took a breath. And that terrifies me. If I accept this as real, if I own it, I have to accept I'm not who I thought. Deal with my family, my mom, dad, brothers, traditional. They won't understand, won't accept it. That's when I saw his real fear. Not about me, about the world, the consequences, the price of honesty. My friends too, he continued. Work guys. Everyone knows me as the guy who picks up girls at the bar. The one of the guys, Raphael. If I admit this, everything changes. I don't know if I'm ready. I got it. Finally understood his side. I'd been through it, faced that fear, lost people for being who I am. But he hadn't. For him this was new. Terrifying. Leap in the dark with no safety net. I won't pressure you, I said. Won't force you to be something you're not ready for. Won't ask you to come out before you're ready. Raphael looked at me with surprise, as if he expected me to demand an immediate answer, a clear definition. But I can't pretend I feel nothing, I continued. Can't keep living here, seeing you, acting like my heart doesn't break every time you leave. So what do we do? Raphael asked, voice trembling. The million-dollar question. I don't know, I admitted. But we can't go back. Can't undo this conversation. Truth is out. We have to decide what to do with it. Raphael nodded slowly, thoughtfully. I just need time, he said, to process this, to understand what I'm feeling, to be brave enough. That's okay, I said, and it was true. Because I'd learned you can't force anyone to accept something before they're ready. I can give you time. But you won't wait forever, right? Raphael asked, sad smile. No, I said honestly. I won't. Because I deserve to be loved. I deserve someone who isn't afraid to want me. And if that's not you, I'll move on. Raphael closed his eyes like those words hurt, but he knew they were true. I understand, he said. And then something unexpected happened. Raphael laughed, a small laugh, tired, but genuine. We're a mess, he said. I laughed too. True. We were a mess. Two guys who'd spent years hiding, lying, pretending. And now we were there, eyes red from crying so much, laughing at the absurd situation we had gotten ourselves into. The biggest mess, I confirmed, looking at him with that sad smile, tears still drying, the vulnerability he'd shown. I realized something important. We'd been brave, both of us, admitting these things, exposing these truths, taking off these masks that took real courage. And even without knowing what's next, even without guarantees, even with all the fear and confusion, we chose the truth. And maybe that was already a victory. Raphael shifted on the sofa. For a moment I thought he'd get up and leave, but instead, he did something unexpected, moved closer, slowly, hesitantly, and then he rested his head on my shoulder. It wasn't romantic or sexual, just exhaustion. Two people who just bared their souls and needed comfort, and I let him, because I needed it too. We stayed like that, in silence, just feeling each other breathe, existing without pretending. And it was strange, because after all that emotional storm, after all those painful words, after all those tears, this silence was peaceful. Not complete peace. Peace with questions, but honest, vulnerable. A peace that said, I don't know what's next, but at least we're real now. Thank you, Raphael whispered on my shoulder. For what? I asked. For being honest. For giving me time. For being you. My chest tightened again. But this time it wasn't from pain. It was from something different. Something I couldn't name. Thank you for having courage, I replied. For admitting the truth. For not running away. Raphael lifted his head, looked at me. Something lighter, like a weight had lifted. So are we okay? He asked, insecure. And I thought about it. Were we okay? No, we weren't. Because there was still a lot to resolve. There was still a lot of confusion. There was still a lot of fear. But we were better. Because we were being honest. And that was already a start. We're gonna be okay, I said. And I meant it. Raphael smiled. Small, tired, but real. So, what are we now? He asked. And that question hung in the air. Without an answer. Without definition. Without a label. Because the truth was that we didn't know. And maybe, for now, it was okay not to know. Maybe we just needed to exist, honestly, vulnerably, without masks, and see where that would lead. And that was exactly what we did. We stayed on the sofa, where it all started. No rush, no labels, no pressure. Just existing. Raphael ran his hand through his hair, sighed, smiled again. Tired, but real. I'm scared, he said, looking at me. I'm very scared. I understood. I was afraid too. What it meant. What people would think. Ruining everything. Not being enough. Being too much. But there was something bigger than fear. Something I had felt that night when he touched my hair. And in the days that followed when I pretended everything was normal. And now, after everything we had said. Truth. And the truth was, I didn't want to pretend anymore. I'm afraid too, I said, but I don't want to hide anymore. Raphael looked at me, really looked at me, like he was seeing me for the first time. And then he moved, slowly, uncertainly, but consciously. He raised his hand, stopped midway, asked, "Can I?" 2 words, but they meant everything we couldn't say before. Permission, respect, choice, not confusion or alcohol. Honesty, vulnerability, real. Yes, I said. And Raphael touched my face. Slowly. Gently. Like I was precious and fragile. His fingers slid down my cheek, along my jaw, to the back of my neck. And I closed my eyes. Not because I was pretending, but because I was feeling. Every second, every breath, every beat of my racing heart. Because this time was different. This time I could react. This time I could want. And I did. I opened my eyes. Raphael was still there. So close I could see the golden flecks in his brown eyes. I could feel the warmth of his breath on my skin. "I don't know what we are," he whispered. "Me neither," I replied. And it was true. We didn't know. We weren't just friends. But we weren't officially a couple either. There was no label. There was no definition. But there was something. Something real. Something honest. Something we had built in that painful and necessary conversation. "It's okay not to know," I said. Raphael smiled. A small smile. Vulnerable. But true. "Is it?" "It is." And it was. His hand still on the back of my neck, my breath still racing. The space between us almost non-existent, but conscious. Everything conscious now. Raphael pulled his hand away, slowly, as if he didn't really want to let go, and leaned back on the sofa. "So," he started. Stopped. Started again. "Are we gonna try?" Try what? I didn't know exactly. But I understood the question behind the question. Are we going to try to be honest? Are we going to try to explore this? Are we going to try not to run away from what we feel? "We're going to try," I said. And it was enough. Because sometimes we don't need all the answers. Sometimes we just need the courage to ask the question. Life went on after that night. Obviously it did. The world didn't stop just because we had finally spoken about what we felt. The next day, I woke up in my room. Raphael woke up in his. We had coffee together, talked about work, about the weather, about soccer, normal, almost. But there was something different now. A look that lingered a second longer. A smile that meant more than just politeness. A closeness that wasn't just because we shared an apartment. It was because we had chosen to be close. And it was scary. Because choosing is taking responsibility. It's owning it. It's admitting it. But it was also liberating. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't hiding. I wasn't pretending to sleep while life happened around me. I was awake, vulnerable, but alive. Raphael still had doubts, still had fear, still didn't know exactly how to define himself, and that's okay. Because I didn't have all the answers either. But we had agreed on one thing: honesty. If something bothered us, we'd say it. If something changed, we'd say it. If we needed space, we'd say it. No more pretending. No more masks. And that was revolutionary. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. A week later, we were watching a movie. Some thriller neither of us was really paying attention to. And Raphael rested his head on my shoulder. He didn't ask. He didn't announce it. He just did it. And I let him. Because now I could. 2 weeks later, his family called. His dad asked if he had gotten a girlfriend. Raphael looked at me. Uncertain. Vulnerable. "No, Dad," he said. "But I'm figuring some things out about myself." It wasn't a full confession. It wasn't an official coming out. But it was a step. And when he hung up, he was trembling. I held his hand. And we stayed there. In silence. But together. Because sometimes just being present is enough. A month later, we still lived in the same apartment. Still split bills. Still argued about who left dishes in the sink. But we shared other things now too. Vulnerabilities, fears, hopes, and every now and then, Raphael would touch my face and ask, "Can I?" And I would always say, "Yes." Because consent wasn't just about that first moment. It was about all the moments after that too. I don't know how this story will end. If we'll become an official couple. If we'll discover it's better to just be friends. If we'll work out, or if it'll just be an important but temporary chapter in our lives. And you know what? It's okay not to know. Because what matters isn't the final destination. It's the courage to walk the path without pretending. And I learned one thing in this whole story. One thing that changed everything in my life. Pretending to sleep doesn't protect you. It only makes you miss the moments that could have been real. And real can be scary. Real can be confusing. Real can be painful. But real is also the only way to truly live. So if you're listening to me right now, if you've ever hidden who you really are, if you've ever pretended not to feel something you felt with your whole being, if you've ever been afraid of losing someone for being authentic, maybe it's time to stop pretending to sleep. Because I spent years of my life hiding my feelings. Years pretending everything was okay. Years afraid that if I were myself, I'd lose everything. And do you know what happened when I stopped pretending? I didn't lose everything. I gained the possibility of something real. And that's worth more than any security that pretending offers. So open your eyes, take a deep breath, and choose to live awake. Because life is happening right now, and you deserve to be present for it. You deserve to be truly seen, and someone out there deserves to see you. No masks, no fear, no pretense, just you. Real, vulnerable, but completely alive. This is my story. The story of how I stopped pretending to sleep. And now, what is yours?